Edward Bellamy was a social philosopher of the 19th century and played an important role in populism. His novel, Looking Backward, sold more than 1 million copies and appealed to the public who were still suffering from the Depression of 1883 and disturbed by industrial clashes such as the Chicago Haymarket Riot in 1886. Written in 1888, Looking Backward was set in Boston in the year 2000 and was about a utopian society, or a perfect society, where the U.S. was under an ideal socialist system that featured cooperation, brotherhood, and industry, all geared to the human need. Bellamy became an active propagandist for nationalization of public services, and his ideas encouraged foundations of nationalist clubs. Political groups inspired by his works appeared in Europe, especially in the Netherlands. Edward Bellamy, in his novel Looking Backward, played a big role in society in these ways, and Bellamy also influenced the Populist Party platform of 1892 through the Nationalist magazine. Edward Bellamy influenced the Populist Party through his viewpoints and his writings. In Bellamy's ideal society, all capital was in government hands, and the farmers through the Populist Party wanted government ownership of all forms of transportation and communication. The farmers in their Populist Party platform also wanted election of senators by direct vote of the people, and with everyone being equal, having a say wouldn't be much of a problem. Farmers also struggled financially after the Panic of 1873, and in Bellamy's society, everyone got equal pay, so it would have helped them in terms of their wealth. Bellamy's viewpoints were on the sides of problems of the farmers, and his solutions generally solved most of the problems of the farmers, leading him to be an important role in influencing the Populist Party. Edward Bellamy viewed industrialization as very beneficial and necessary. This was seen in his utopian society through his novel, Looking Backward. He believed it was important to have economies of technological and industrial progression, which would produce abundant materials that met society's needs. He thought the organization of production solved the scarcity problem. Edward Bellamy's novel, Looking Backward, was published at a time where there were many labor unions having strikes. Bellamy wanted equal pay and everything equal, including the rights of people, so he saw the role of labor unions as a benefit to society. He also hated brutal working conditions, so wanting everyone to work in an industry equally and for industry to be perfect, he was on the side of labor unions. Edward Bellamy heavily opposed robber barons because he wanted an equality of wealth where there were no upper and lower classes, but where everyone was perfect and where everyone was equal. Robber barons became rich through ruthless business practices, which Bellamy was completely against. He wanted equality to avoid these type of people and to make sure nobody could have greater wealth than others. He was more of a captain of industry, but his way to provide for the good of everyone was to just make everyone and everything equal. Edward Bellamy made clear in his novel, Looking Backward, what changes he wanted in society, and one of those main changes was social change. He believed that there needed to be an economic equalization of all members of society. He believed equal distribution of property led to a morally improved society without money and private enterprises. In his ideal utopian society, people work for pride instead of money, so their patriotic desire to serve the government and the common good replaced their profit motive. In contrast to the 19th century, which embraced individualism and private business, his 20th century utopian society and Looking Backward emphasized cooperation and contribution by all to common good and the general improvement of society. Also, in his perfect society, industrial society was more peaceful. Bellamy disliked the brutal and primitive society of the 19th century when it came to immigrants and other minorities with the way they were treated in industry. In Edward Bellamy's ideal society, everyone was economically equal. He believed everyone needed to be paid the same amount and that people needed to serve in whatever capacity their talents and best skills were suited. His society in Looking Backward was that everyone worked to their full potential, so everyone got equal pay. Due to this equal pay, people vied for honor and status rather than wealth. Bellamy believed society could be changed peacefully through evolution, education, and persuasion. It would be the will of people that all means of production and distribution could be gradually consolidated under government control. He believed that taking private property away would be very good for the country. There would no longer be issues such as shortages, social class divisions, joblessness, poor working conditions and long hours, child labor, strikes, poverty, hunger, crime, and war. In his ideal society, there was no competition, no duplication of producers and distributors, no waste due to overproduction, no idle capital or labor, no political parties, and no clinical crises. He believed it was best for the country to have a total equality of income, universal public education, social welfare and healthcare systems, and universal employment in an industrial army. Bellamy felt his society that he wanted was perfect for the country. In looking backward, businesses merged into huge combinations, which evolved into the placement of all capital in the hands of the government. Monopolies grew larger until the state took over the monopolies, including means of production, to become one huge state trust. Bellamy believed that existence of capitalistic monopolies was necessary for the transitional stage that preceded society of a totally nationalized economy. As mentioned before, Edward Bellamy was a social philosopher and played a significant role in populism. Bellamy conveyed the many issues he cared about in his novel Looking Backward, which he defined as his perfect society as the antithesis of the current society. The recurring overall personal issue he cared about was social class and wealth being off balance, with there being a rich and a poor and people more well off than others. He didn't like rich taking advantage of the poor or the poor living conditions the poor had in the 19th century. He didn't like the rich having an advantage in life and getting more opportunities because he viewed everyone as citizens and everyone the same, everyone deserving of the same opportunities. He believed everyone needed to be equal economically, socially, and in every way. Looking Backward is a primary document that Edward Bellamy wrote about a utopian society, or a perfect society, and this is a quote from that. The equal wealth and equal opportunities of culture which all persons now enjoy have simply made us all members of one class. This is from a character in that book called Dr. Leety, and they're saying that the equal distribution of wealth and universal education is erased class differences. So there's no classes. Everyone is the same. They're equal. They get the same number of credits. There's no rich. There's no poor. It's just everyone's equal. Education for all citizens, it gives citizens the common understanding and manners. So there's not like a cultured or uneducated class. There's one single class of people, and it's the citizens. So it goes on Edward Bellamy's idea that everyone should be equal, that society should be equal, and that is the best for the country.